Have you ever wondered about the untold stories that led to the India-Pakistan War of 1947? As the sun set on the British Raj in the summer of 1947, two new nations were birthed from the ashes, India and Pakistan. The partition was a direct consequence of the British Empire's decolonization, an event that drew a stark line through the heart of the Indian subcontinent. This line, known as the Radcliffe Line, was drawn hastily by a British lawyer, Sir Cyril Radcliffe, who had never set foot in India before. But the partition was far from peaceful. It ignited one of the largest mass migrations in human history, with millions of Hindus, Sikhs and Muslims crossing borders, seeking a new home in what they hoped would be a safer country. However, this mass migration was marred by communal violence, with riots breaking out in various parts of the region. It's estimated that up to 2 million people lost their lives during this tumultuous time. In the midst of this chaos, tensions between the newly formed nations were brewing. The partition had left many unresolved issues, including the fate of the princely states, who were given the choice to join either India or Pakistan. The princely state of Kashmir, with its Muslim-majority population and Hindu ruler, became a contentious point between the two nations. In addition to this, there were disputes over water resources and border demarcations. The hurried departure of the British left many administrative and logistical challenges. The two nations, still grappling with the aftermath of partition, found themselves at odds, with mistrust and hostility growing. Just as a potter molds clay into a pot, these events shaped the socio-political landscape of the Indian subcontinent. The shared history of India and Pakistan, steeped in blood and tears, was marked by a painful birth. The echoes of this tumultuous time can still be heard today, reverberating through the annals of history. Thus, the stage was set for a conflict that would shape the future of the Indian subcontinent. In the midst of chaos and confusion, the first war between India and Pakistan broke out. This was no ordinary conflict. It was a war sparked by the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir. The year was 1947, a time when the subcontinent was partitioned, and the princely states were left to decide their fate, to join India, Pakistan, or remain independent. In the north of the subcontinent, nestled amidst towering mountains, lay the beautiful state of Jammu and Kashmir, ruled by Maharaja Hari Singh. The Maharaja, caught in a vortex of political upheaval and territorial ambitions, was initially inclined towards maintaining independence. However, destiny had other plans. As autumn descended upon the region, tribal militias from Pakistan, known as Lashkars, launched an invasion into Kashmir. The Lashkars, armed and aggressive, were intent on seizing the land for Pakistan. The Maharaja found himself cornered, his state's sovereignty under threat. Faced with an imminent invasion, the Maharaja made a pivotal decision. He signed the Instrument of Accession, officially acceding the state of Jammu and Kashmir to India. The Indian army was airlifted into the valley, marking the official commencement of the Indo-Pak War. The conflict was fierce and fraught, with both sides locked in a bitter struggle for control. As the war progressed, the United Nations stepped in, attempting to mediate between the two newly formed nations. However, their involvement was met with mixed reactions, leading to further complexities in the ongoing war. The war was not just a battle over territory, it was a test of endurance, resilience, and national identity for both India and Pakistan. It was a war that would shape the geopolitical dynamics of the Indian subcontinent for decades to come. As the war raged on, it was clear that the consequences would be far-reaching. The echoes of this war are still heard today, reverberating through the annals of history and influencing the relationship between these two nations in ways that continue to shape our world. Every war has its turning point, and the India-Pakistan War was no exception. Our tale now turns to the strategic maneuvers and key battles that would shape the outcome of this conflict. On one side of the chessboard we had India, a newly independent nation, finding its footing on the global stage. On the other side, Pakistan, a fledgling country driven by a desire to assert its sovereignty and territorial claims. The military strategies employed by both nations were as varied as they were ingenious. India adopted a defensive-offensive approach, a combination of defending its own territory while launching strategic attacks against Pakistan. Pakistan, on the other hand, adopted a predominantly offensive strategy, focusing on capturing key territories in Jammu and Kashmir. The Battle of Nowshera, a testament to tactical brilliance, was a turning point in this war. The Indian Army, under the command of Brigadier Usman, repulsed numerous attacks by the Pakistani forces. Despite being heavily outnumbered, the Indian Army held its ground, showcasing an unyielding spirit of resilience and courage. Then there was the Battle of Jungar, a significant encounter that highlighted the ebb and flow of war. Initially, the Pakistani army had captured Jungar. However, displaying remarkable tenacity, the Indian army recaptured the region, turning the tide of the war. This victory was not just a military success, but also a morale booster for the Indian forces. These battles, while significant in their own right, were not isolated incidents. They were part of a larger tapestry, woven with threads of courage, determination, and strategic genius. Each move, each counter-move, influenced the course of this war, altering the geopolitical landscape of the Indian subcontinent. It wasn't just about territory or power, it was about identity, about the determination of two young nations carving out their destinies in a post-colonial world. It was about the human spirit, about the sacrifices made by countless soldiers who fought bravely in the face of daunting odds. These pivotal moments would forever change the course of history in the Indian subcontinent. And so the chessboard of war continued to evolve, each move bringing us closer to the endgame. Every war comes with a cost, and the India-Pakistan war was no different. The human toll was heartrending. Thousands of lives were lost on both sides, forever altering the course of countless families. The economic cost was equally significant. Infrastructure was destroyed, resources depleted, and the future growth of both nations was stunted as they were forced to divert funds towards recovery and defense. But even as the guns fell silent and the smoke cleared, the war was far from over. A ceasefire was agreed upon, but it was a tense and fragile peace. This led to the establishment of the line of control, a de facto border that now separates the Indian and Pakistani-controlled parts of Kashmir. This line, however, is not recognized by either nation as the official border, and the dispute over the ownership of Kashmir remains unresolved. Kashmir, with its breathtaking beauty and strategic location, has been the apple of discord between India and Pakistan since their independence. Despite the ceasefire and the line of control, the region remains a flashpoint for conflict and tension. Skirmishes and cross-border firing are not uncommon, and the lives of the people living in these areas are frequently disrupted. The aftermath of the war also had a profound impact on the political landscape of both countries. It heightened nationalist sentiments and further deepened the divide between the two nations. The echoes of the war can still be heard in the rhetoric used by politicians on both sides, and it continues to shape their foreign policies and diplomatic relations. The war also left a lasting impact on the psyche of the people. The memories of the war are etched in the minds of those who lived through it, and it continues to cast a long shadow over the generations that followed. Every war comes with a cost, and the India-Pakistan war was no different. The human toll was heart-rending. Thousands of lives were lost on both sides, forever altering the course of countless families. The economic cost was equally significant. Infrastructure was destroyed, resources depleted, and the future growth of both nations was stunted as they were forced to divert funds towards recovery and defense. The echoes of this war still reverberate in the politics and diplomacy of India and Pakistan. The war may have ended decades ago, but its aftershocks continue to be felt today. The quest for peace remains elusive, and the wounds of the past are yet to fully heal. History is a great teacher, but only if we're willing to learn. As we delve into the aftermath of the 1947 India-Pakistan War, It's clear that this historical event was not simply a chapter to be closed, but rather a prelude to a series of conflicts that would follow. The war didn't end with the ceasefire agreement in 1949. Instead, it laid the groundwork for further animosity and conflict between the two nations. Over the years, the India-Pakistan relationship has been marked by a series of wars, the most notable ones occurring in 1965 and 1971. While the origins of these conflicts can be traced back to the unresolved issues of 1947, they also had their unique causes and consequences. The 1965 war, for instance, was sparked by territorial disputes in the Rann of Kutch and Kashmir, while the 1971 war was primarily a consequence of the Bangladesh Liberation War. Yet the shadow of the 1947 conflict loomed large over these subsequent wars. The unresolved issues of partition, particularly the Kashmir problem, continued to be a bone of contention. Fast forward to the late 20th century, the escalation reached a new level, with both nations becoming nuclear powers. India conducted its first nuclear test in 1974, followed by Pakistan in 1998. This nuclearization has only added a new dimension to the already fraught relationship, making the prospect of war all the more dangerous. But let's pause for a moment and think. Have we learned anything from these repeated cycles of conflict? It's high time we recognize that war is not the solution. It only brings destruction, loss, and suffering. The need of the hour is peace and reconciliation, a commitment to dialogue and understanding. The India-Pakistan War of 1947 was not just a historical event, but a lesson for the future, a lesson that sadly is yet to be fully learned.